So I keep saying it's the last video, but we're nearly there. So what we're trying to do is get this push button value now to come back to take effect on the PLC. And what we have to do is we actually need to do another device. We need to create another device, because what would be nice is well, the way I see it is we can structure this data as this is incoming data. It's reading values in, it's reading values in from those devices. The next table is going to be sending data down. The data is going to be in a different stream. It's going to be writing it back down. And basically what we're going to tell our PLC to look in one area, even though we're going to have maybe two things sending data into this table. So I'll hopefully explain it as we go. So we're going to add in a new device. We're going to call it, we'll just call it Cloud PLC Link. Okay, going to create that device type. Device ID, it's going to be, let's see, let's just go user inputs. Okay, so again, we've gone through this process many times, so we will keep going with this and we will create the data. And I'm going to save this. Always very important to save that. Pop this data in. Here's all my keys, and we will tidy these up. So we will need this later for when we're writing some of our events and trying to get Watson to communicate across. Okay, so I'll keep that saved for later. Okay, so we're going to go back. We now have a device called user inputs that's really going to allow me to do this cloud link and send data back down. Okay, so what I want to do, in here, this is what we've created. And what I've also done is when that payload for the button comes in, okay, when the event for it comes in, I want to save that value in some global memory because I'm going to use it later. So I've pushed the button, we've sent that data up, and I'm saving it. So what we should see, if we're all still connected here, is we see that go to 1 and then it goes back to 0. Okay, so I'm using that information and we are going to create an event that writes. So we're going to write to this particular table in our IBM Watson. Okay, now I have this previously. I'm just going to copy this so I can speed things up a wee bit. Paste that in. So this is the push button is pressed from ESP32. We're going to use the cloud link to get back to the PLC. So timestamp, we're going to do it. I'm going to check that status maybe every half a second. We'll disable it for the moment. And what we're doing is we have a payload. We're getting the global value from that, and we're going to write it as an event. And I'm going to have to edit some of this because it's going to be a different organization now. I've got to change this up, put in our data. So this is our device type. We're going to call it user inputs. And we should have a token that we can use to write to the area that we needed to write to. Okay, and what we're saying is every time we run this timestamp, it's going to take this storage value of the button and it's going to write it into this table. Okay, so what we can do is we can deploy that. Okay, successfully deployed. We've connected to Watson, so we can see we're connected on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the timestamp. So every half a second, that should be writing in here. So we should see an event come in every half second of that. Did we hit deploy? Maybe we didn't hit deploy. Every half second should be, sorry about the screen, should be coming in. We're getting a value in there, a value of 0. Okay, so that value is coming in, and that's basically getting that information from this global variable which was coming in originally from this device. Now what I can do is I can get my PLC and my local, remember this is the cloud version of Node-RED, I can get the local version to now just look at this table of information to see is there a button being pressed or not. Keep looking at this. Same way when events were coming in, we were pushing them out up here. We're going to do it the opposite way. Get the PLC and the local side to just look at this table and just see is that data at a 0 or a 1. Okay, and then we will read from that. Okay, so what I got to do is I got to now go. Remember, this is our cloud version of Node-RED. We're now going to go back to our local version and do a bit of reading from that side. Okay, so I now have my local version of Node-RED running. Okay, I have that running, and I have, this is the local version of Node-RED, and over here is my cloud version of Node-RED sitting on IBM. Okay, we can see our tables. These are kind of our gateways, our devices. Let's say we're connected to the PLC. This is sending data up. We're connected to the ESP. That's sending data up, and then we're connected to this kind of cloud link device that's going to send data down from the cloud. Okay, but the funny thing is, even though we send data up from the BME sensor, remember this has the push button included, I take it from up here and then I kind of extract it from here and I push it into this and I'm sending it back down through this. So now what I would like on my my local Node-RED, very confusing, is I want to look at events coming in on the push button. Okay, and I think I have done this somewhere. So receive data from the cloud. So we're going to take that, paste that in. Okay, this is going to be receiving data coming in from the cloud. So I can now say on that device event, and we can set up the proper API key for it. Yes, we need to use the system API key for this, which I may have already in, but we'll just double check. Don't think so. This is the system API key for Node-RED, which will access all of the devices on IBM Watson, but we're just going to be looking at the cloud PLC link one and the correct user inputs. So we just want the PLC to look at one table, take that value in. So we create the message, store that value of the payload, okay? Eject that out. And what we're going to do is we're going to write it in to our PLC on the correct tag that we have available. So I got to make sure I have the right client. Okay, so it's 96. We're writing this client. I'm going to have to edit that. Now, it's a different PLC I'm using this time. We're writing the values. Here we are reading values. Just to make this a bit clear, we are reading values initially, pushing it up to IBM. Now we're watching IBM on a particular table, that user inputs table, to then write the value back down to the PLC. Okay, so I have that as a write, that's as a read. The item, I'm going to have to check now at our PLC. So we've opened up TIA portal and we look back at this little bit of logic, and remember this is the real push button on the PLC that's going to turn on our motor indirectly through a memory bit, and then that's the real reset button. But we're also kind of duplicating these two as some memory bits. So we have a memory bit that could, as an input, that could operate it, or a memory bit that could break it. So what we've got here is we're going to use that particular input with our local PLC. So this was OPC input. Just try and get the right context. You may need to use your UA expert to do that. -00 or _00. So that should now read events in, take the payload, put it to a message, and then write that in here to a particular tag that we want to overwrite. It'll display a little debug message, but we'll also do that, and that will do that every time an event is written, and it's to be written every half a second. Okay, so let's enable that. Let's deploy it. Okay, if we look at some of our debug messages, we've probably got a lot going on here, so let's delete some and let's try and see. Okay, so we've got we have that active, and we have, okay, this is disconnected. Okay, let's see just what's going on here using the API key. Have I got all that data right? Let me just double check it. So what I actually had wrong was just some of the settings on my API key. I just had this tag here, that server name, wrong. So hopefully that should deploy now. Yes, we're getting good communication. The value is being written every half second, and it's just writing a value of 0 now. But hopefully, if we actually put this into monitoring mode, and if I we'll wait for that to kick in, we should actually see, and I know you can't see me pressing the push button on my device, but let's just maybe see it down here. If I push this, we see push button has been pressed, and we see the real output has now been activated on the PLC, and we should see that back up on our dashboard. We should see the values now through. Okay, a push button has been reset because it's a push button. So let's turn this off. Let's modify this to 1 and then modify that to 0. So the output is back, it's reset, and again that should be reflected back up here. So everything's communicating nicely. Brilliant. So this video is a little long. We're going to do the final part where we actually add some dashboard buttons here to also control the PLC.